Have you checked out all the new handicappers at Wager Talk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at Wager Talk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to wagertalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.
Welcome in, guys, to Wager Talk TV, and happy Monday. Of course, we're here to break down all the NHL games on the tap for today. Only a few games to look at. We've got best bets at the end of the show, and we're going to do the buy and sell segment tomorrow on Tuesday when I'm back in my home setup there in the home office. But Carm, it was an exciting weekend in the NHL. Many sports going on, including soccer. And you had some soccer action. How was your weekend, man?
Overall, yesterday not so good. Overall, it was a good weekend from Friday on, I think, as a collection, but just a ton of action. There's like everything's going on right now. It just seems like pretty much every sport is going on. And of course, while this is a hockey show, it was a Selection Sunday. March Madness is upon us, and I know a lot of huge basketball fans out there. So there's going to be a lot of the great thing about I think the March Madness, Andrew, is you literally have games all day long. There's nothing better than noontime basketball. There's 2 or 3 games, and then you got the 3 o'clock, so you got the evening ones and then the late games. So that's great. Of course, we're in the last month of the NHL season as well too. So there's a ton of playoff races still to be determined. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot going on, and I want to thank everyone who came along on Saturday at a 5% play on the Ottawa-Vancouver game. It looked dire straits on that one. Didn't look like it was going to get there, but we got some third period luck and an empty netter to go in as well too, with I think about 5 seconds left in the game or 15 seconds left in the game. So I'll take it. Puck luck, it's what it's about. Sometimes they go against you, sometimes they go for you. I'm glad this time it went for me.
Hey, it's not about how the game starts, it's about how it finishes, and it sounds like it was a great finish for you. I wasn't watching that game, but when you messaged me about it, I went right to the box.
So Andrew seems to have frozen up. He's having some Wi-Fi issues today, but I'm sure he'll refresh and hopefully get back in there. What we're going to do is we normally on Mondays have the buy and sell segment. We are going to do the buy and sell segment tomorrow. Andrew will be in a better location and won't have to deal with these Wi-Fi issues. But while we wait for him, let's not forget today's $9 Mondays, $9 Mondays at Wager Talk. You can get in every single daily package, including 5% plays for only $9. There's a lot of them up today. I've got soccer for tomorrow, Champions League. I put it up today as $9, and then some NHL plays and props for tonight as well. If you have any questions, because it might just be me today if Andrew can't get his Wi-Fi going, drop them in the chat. I'll try and get them out to you guys. If I have a chance, I will also snag a name out of today's live chat to get a shirt. TJ won on Friday. 6-60 did not go 0-6, so that's a good thing. So I think he either win 3-3 or 4-2. I'm not really sure. I'll pick somebody out and we'll give away another T-shirt as well today too. Andrew, we got you back.
You've got me back, and I got to come back to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm looking forward to this one. Carm, we talk about some games being better for props. I think you would agree with me. This is probably a really good prop game, whether it's a couple guys in the Canadiens or the Avalanche with how well they're playing right now. And, you know, you've even mentioned this Avalanche team as a team moving forward to look at, and even really for their odds to win the Stanley Cup, to win the West. They were so injured all season long, and they slowly started to get healthier and healthier. They made a few moves at the trade deadline. Here they are, minus 270, Montreal plus 220, total at 6.5 here. And I'll tell you, I don't miss that many Montreal games. They've been competing, as you know, against some of these top teams, losing in overtime, losing by 1 or 2 goals. But I feel like a team like the Avalanche, with how deep they are, I'm not sure Montreal will be able to hang with them, especially with all the games they've been through lately. When I looked at this game, immediately I wanted to look at the team total over 3.5 goals for the Colorado Avalanche. Based on their production lately, the teams they've played, a little bit different competition level here tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. My pick was the team total over 3.5 for Colorado. What did you have for us in this one?
It's a tough. Well, I'm going to say it's a tough one. It's a tough one as far as the total goes. Colorado should win this. I was on Saturday's last call with Peyton, Megan Peyton. And, I talked about the Montreal Canadiens. They're competing and they're staying in games, but ultimately they're losing games. They should have been losing games, a month ago. They've pulled themselves out of that. No, but they pulled themselves out of a spot where you want to finish in the, I get it. You can't, there's no way of possibly tanking other than the coach putting in a backup goalie, reducing minutes of his better players and bringing some guys up without it looking like tanking. But you want to try and finish in one of the bottom 3 spots in the overall to have the best chance. And it's got to be the bottom 3 spots to have the best percentage chance of getting that first pick in the draft, which is a big one this year. But you've got Columbus on 47 points. You've got Chicago and San Jose on 50 points, and then Anaheim Ducks on 54. So now you've got the Montreal Canadiens at, where are they, at 58? They've sort of pulled themselves out of that, unfortunately, and that is a problem with them. Colorado, listen, every single game for Colorado from here on out is a big game. I think of their last 18 games or so, 11 of them are against teams that are in the bottom 3. These are the games they need to be winning. They can't hiccup on these games because they're sitting in 8th. And I think they, with a bunch of games in hand, I think they still feel that they don't have to worry about making a playoff spot. They're getting healthy. But these are the games where they're almost like landmines. You go into Montreal and Montreal springs an upset on you. It happens. It happens in NHL. We're seeing some teams. Columbus has done it to a few teams of late. I'd rather look at the under here. It's just because Montreal is sort of competing and Colorado doesn't need to win games 7-1 or 6-2. And they're playing well defensively as well, too. It's one of those games where I don't think it gets anywhere near that total of 6.5. So I'm leery on playing the team totals, but I get it. Yours could easily get there when Colorado wins 4-1 or 5-1 tonight. I would probably, I'd probably look at the under is probably the best play here. I wouldn't even take the puck line because a lot of Montreal's games have been 1-goal games. So I would likely look at the under 6.5 here and some player props. And I do have a player prop in this game, which I'll talk about during the best bet segment.
Yeah, I'll definitely have some player props in this one as well. And Carm, I wanted to mention, you talk about the young players, right? I like how you kind of almost did an instruction guide for how to tank, right? How should a team get that bottom 3 spot? But here's the problem, Carm, is that the players that were playing the best for the Canadiens were the guys that came from the AHL. So St. Louis, they tried to bring in young players, and those guys ended up being the better players on the team. So it's like you said, it's very hard to teach a team to tank. But unfortunately for the Canadiens, those were the better players right now, the young guys getting all the experience. But I think it's going to be a rough night for the Canadiens. And I very well think that you could hit your under and I could hit this team total. It's definitely possible that both of them could hit. No doubt about it. This next one, Carm, your Sabres taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we do have a 7 as the total in this one. And you know what happens. We talk about this all the time. You know what happens when we see a 7 as the total. Everyone lines up to the window to bet the over because it's 2 teams that can score goals. And 7s just always seem to go under. We had one last week that everybody was betting over the total, and it stayed well under, involving the Buffalo Sabres here. Maple Leafs played a crazy game on the weekend against the Edmonton Oilers. That game was really high scoring. Here they are, minus 260. Buffalo plus 210. I like the under here, Carm. I'm expecting a bounce back defensive performance from both these clubs in their own respective ways. And I think that when you look at Toronto, how they operate consistently off an over and off a bad defensive game, they usually seem to always bounce back with a good defensive performance. I still feel that people don't give them enough credit for changing into a better defensive team this season. And as much as you and I have fun with this team and make fun of them a little bit for their playoff history and things like that, we can't take away that they have become a better defensive organization. So I think that we see two teams here that know how to score goals, but we're also seeing a 7 as the total. I'll go under here. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I don't think the under is a bad play at all. A few things. I was going to say originally, look to see who the goalie is for the Sabres. If it's Comrie, we saw what happened to him when he got lit up for 10 goals, but he's injured, which is probably not a good thing for him, but a good thing for the team. But he's injured. Dahlin's injured. Samuelson's injured. Those are. The last two are big ones because they're part of the Sabres defensive corps on that team. And it's just that the scheduling finally caught up to Sabres. They played a good game bouncing back from that 10-4 embarrassment to the Stars. They bounced back with a very good game against New York Rangers with Luukkonen in goal, and he should be starting tonight as well too. But at the end of the day, they still lost that game. When we look at the 7s, and I want to thank Ralph Michaels because I sent Ralph a message 15 minutes before this show asking for a stat, and he got it for me. I can't get it up on the screen, but I will tell you this. For totals of 7, since the start of, I think, the 2022 season, there have been 31 games with a total of 7. The over is 8, 15, and 8. So the under has hit 15 of 31 times with 8 pushes as well too. 32% or 34.8% the over is hit. This is why the under is such a good play. Normally with these 7s, it is so tough to get to the number of 8. I get it. The Leafs have been a big part of this. The Leafs were a 7 on the weekend against the Edmonton Oilers, and that game finished 7-4. The Leafs were also earlier this month against the Oilers 7 as well too. That game finishes 5-2. So they're always sort of mixed in there. But the Sabres were 7 against the Florida Panthers. The game finishes 4-1. So the unders, I think the unders are the right play here. Especially because it's Luukkonen in goal, he at least keeps the Sabres in games. I think the better play is likely the Leafs on the puck line. You're getting them at even money, laying a goal and a half, and it's just a game that the Leafs are playing well. They love to put another nail in the coffin of a Sabres team that last year beat the Leafs 3 out of 4 times and embarrassed them in March in Toronto. So a little bit of revenge, even though they're not thinking that far back. Leafs minus 1.5 is the play here, and I don't mind the under 7 that you've got, Andrew.
It's funny too because I feel like, Carm, it's like, would you say this is a contrarian play, or because of the 7, it's not as much of a contrarian play? Because I feel like when you look at games like this, people just automatically expect, okay, it's the Leafs, it's the Sabres, it's going to be high scoring, but also I take into account the previous game. Right. That's how I do a lot of my tapping is how a team bounces back off a certain situation. And I've said it all kinds of times this year on the show with you that when the Maple Leafs, even if they're the team that does the scoring, when they're involved in a really sloppy game, usually they tighten things up in their next game. So would you say we're being contrarians here?
I don't know. I think we might be contrarians just to the number. Listen, anytime you're presented with a stat that hits at 66% on a total, with a sample size of 31 games, why wouldn't you take it? When we shy away from them, like I have some WhatsApp groups with my friends, and since last night, it's all blowing up with Leafs over tomorrow. Like everyone wants to take the Leafs over tomorrow. And I get it. They just scored 7 against the Oilers. It was a sloppy game. It is sometimes you need 2 teams that can score. And while the Sabres have proven throughout the year that they could score and they can also allow a lot of goals, they've got, I think, 238 goals scored, 236 allowed. The second worst in the East as far as goals allowed, only Columbus is worse. and probably, I think, the second best goal scored other than the Boston Bruins. But they've also tailed off, which is why they are where they are right now on the outside looking in. I just think their schedule has gotten to them. Matt Murray is supposed to be starting for the Leafs. He's actually confirmed for the Leafs tonight, and they're trying to get him going because they know they're going to need Murray for the playoffs. They went out and got him for the playoffs, him and Samsonov, of course. So he's going to get a steady diet. Maybe they play better defensively tonight. Again, I think the better play is the Leafs on the puck line, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is again one of those games where the Leafs win, 4-1, 5-1. It stays under the total. It could very well push 5-2, very common score, 5-2, and It pushes. I'd rather not be praying for a goal at the end of the game where a team is up by 3 goals and the other team does not pull the goalie, and you need a goal and wondering why they're not pulling the goalie to get you over the number of 7. So I would shy away from taking the over in tonight's game. That said, if you refresh your goalies later on and you see it's 41-year-old Craig Anderson in goal, you might change your mind. But Luukkonen's been their better goalie all season long, so we'll see what happens.
Hey, the thing with Anderson is that he'll be really bad for 4 games, then he'll get a shutout out of nowhere. So you never really, don't take too many shots at Craig because he'll show you what he's still made of, Carm, with 40 years old. So speaking of games that could be high scoring and might not see much defense, is our next game here, Dallas and Seattle. Carm, out of nowhere, this Dallas team has turned into an over team. They've turned into a team that can score goals consistently. I know that you've been taking a look at Jason Robertson props pretty much, a lot of times that they play. And I haven't checked in with you about this, but I'm sure you're probably still looking at him. That team is playing really well. Over their last 10 games, they've pretty much on average scored at least 4 goals, which is very difficult to do. And this Seattle team as well, their defense has been pretty sloppy. Their top guys are still playing well and scoring. Their power play has been going very well. Here we see a 6, and it seems like it's on the way to a 6.5. But what do you have for us in this game?
Yeah, the Robertson one, first of all, because since we're talking about player props, it's not one that I want to take in a game like this against Seattle, because Seattle's been pretty good of late keeping those shot totals down. And these teams played on Saturday with Dallas winning like 4-3 in overtime, and they only had, I think, 25 shots on goal in that game. Robertson only had 1 shot on goal in that game. So, he was sort of taken out of the equation. And I'm kind of going against one of the angles that I take a lot during the year. And it's not a hard and fast rule, is when 2 teams play back to back. Normally it's a home and away thing. I will take the team that lost in the first game and bet him in the second game. But I do like Dallas in this spot just because of what you said. They're playing some better hockey. That obviously that win against the Sabres was sort of an outlier. Draw a line through it. They're not going to win a lot of games scoring 10 goals, but then they go to Seattle. They win a game. They're maintaining their spot atop that division. I think they want that number one seed, and this is another big game for them as they continue this road trip. I think they get the win tonight again. I'm going to sort of buck that trend only because there's no travel involved in this. It's not a home and away where you take the home team in the second game after they lost as a visitor in the previous game. This is 2 games in Seattle, and I like Dallas here. They're the better team. We're going to see the same goalies, Ottinger and likely Grubauer, for Seattle. So I'm going to go with the better team, the better goalie here.
It's a good point you raise about these situations where you have the same team playing twice, like back to back here. And a lot of times I like to go opposite of whatever happened in the first game. We saw it with Winnipeg and Edmonton, when Edmonton dominated Winnipeg just like 2 weeks ago, and they go back to Winnipeg and Winnipeg shocks everybody and they won by a few goals. But like you said, to me, this just seems like a really reasonable number here for a team that is just putting up goals in bunches. I mean, it's unbelievable. And talk about how many goals Dallas is scoring. Well, Carm, Seattle's giving up goals. I think they've given up 9 goals their last 2 games. Last 5 games, they're looking like their defense is Swiss cheese right now. It's very easy to go through them, and their goaltending, it's kind of fallen off. So, look, Seattle's still sitting in a playoff spot. This game definitely means a lot to them. But one thing that kind of made me scratch my head when I looked at this number was it felt a little bit cheap. And with how well Dallas is playing right now, I was a little bit confused by that. But one thing I was really impressed by, I talked to you about how I look for bounce back performances. That victory that you touched on that Dallas had over Buffalo. You ever notice how sometimes a team can, come in overconfident after a big win, like almost like they wasted too many goals in one game? I was a bit worried about that with the Dallas Stars in that blowout victory. But then they ended up turning it around and winning 4-3 in their next game. So it looks like they're scoring. They're playing really well, and they're a team that I want to have my money on right now.
Yeah, and I get it, and like I said, I think you need to draw a line straight through that game against Buffalo, because as I mentioned, they scored 10 goals, but their XG numbers, if you look at natural stat trick, were I think it was 4.27 in that game. They scored 6 goals above their expectancy in that game, and that had to do with the goalie, and there were shots going in from the blue line that they weren't blocks. It was just terrible goals going in. It's hard to believe. Listen, Seattle's playing well as well too. 81 points. They're firmly in a playoff spot right now. 8 points up on Nashville and Calgary. So they don't want any prolonged losing streaks, and they're happy getting games to overtime where they pick up a point as well too. One thing I want to go back to, because we're not talking that has nothing to do with these 3 games, but we are going to see a couple very good games this week. And if you watched yesterday's Pittsburgh New York Rangers game, they're playing 3 games in 7 days. These teams do not like each other. They play again on Thursday. They play on Saturday. Both of them will be at Madison Square Gardens. I'm telling you, Andrew, if you watch that game, Trouba threw a hit on someone, and it's the same thing again. It was a clean hit. He didn't knock him out cold, but I blame the Pittsburgh guy for probably putting the puck in the open ice. It was one of those blind pass type of things. These teams hate each other, and by the time Saturday rolls around, you probably want to bet the over in that game, because there's going to be so many penalties and power plays in that game. These teams are going to go at each other, and I'm looking forward to watching Thursdays and Saturdays games between Pittsburgh and the Rangers.
It's awesome, and it's great to. I saw that this interview that someone did with Gary Bettman, and he said, "What's one thing you would change about the game right now?" And Carm, you know what he said? He said was a little bit of the scheduling. He wants more of that at the end of the season. He wants more divisional games at the end of the season. So if there's playoff, implications, if there's teams battling for certain spots, he wants to have more divisional. He doesn't want. Why should an Eastern Conference team be playing a Western Conference team in the second last week of the season? You know what I mean? Like, I just think this is one of those opportunities where he wants to create rivalries. And you talked about it there. Some people might find it weird, the same teams playing each other that many times, but I like it. I think it's awesome. And real quick, since we do have some time, I want to get your thoughts here. We've got Florida and Washington on the outside looking in, but Pittsburgh and New York are currently in the playoff spot. And with the Ottawa Senators struggling on that West Coast road trip, their hopes don't really seem to be alive anymore. Do you have any updates on your thoughts here with the wild card? Do you think it'll stay the way it is right now with Pittsburgh and the Islanders?
No, I'm not entirely sure it will, just because a lot of these teams have to play against each other. The Penguins have to get something out of those 2 series with the Rangers, and sometimes you're going to see, I think, as the season wears on in the third periods, it's hard to just go out and bet random draws, Andrew. But like in some of these games, some of these teams just want to get the games into OT. And you look at Pittsburgh, and their last 4 games have all gone to overtime. They've won 3 of the 4 games. They're picking up points. Get it to OT. That 1 point at the end of the season could make all the difference. You look at the Rangers. their last 3 games all go to OT. Again, the games are getting tighter, and this is why you can't bet like automatic overs. I know as sports bettors, we're like, you can't watch a game and bet the under because like you're watching a game where you're hoping that there are no goals being scored. It is why sports books make money, because everyone seems to want to bet the favorites and the overs. And that's how they keep building these casinos, that and penny slots. But you got to look at some of these unders and some of these unders and games. Sometimes you find those plus 310s, plus 320s for a game to get to OT, and it gets there. I'm not saying you make it, full unit prices, but sometimes you can take some flyers on some of these teams and just have a look at them and look at their last 10, look at their last 15 and see how many times they are going to OT. There's a lot of teams where their games get decided in OT. The New York Rangers, 66 games, 20 of those 66 games, almost a third of those games have gone to overtime. They're 10-10 in OT. So flatly betting them at more than 3-1 odds to get to OT is going to make you money in those spots, Andrew. As far as one last question, and I know you were trying to make it a quick one, but you look at it, Washington. I had the Washington Capitals on Saturday against the New York Islanders. I thought it was a good spot for Washington to go into New York and beat the Islanders. And it was Varlamov, I think, in goal for the Isles. Obviously, I probably wouldn't have taken the game if it was Sorokin in goal. But, Washington's trying to make a late push. 3 of their last 5 they won. One of the games they did get it into OT. So they've picked up 7 of a possible 10 points. But they're still 5 back. It's these games where you talked about these rivals, Andrew, where Pittsburgh and the Islanders and Washington are playing each other. And it might allow that team that I'm high on them, and then I'm not high on them, and then I'm high on them again, the Florida Panthers, to squeak in there, because Florida's picked up 7 of a possible 8 points in their last 4 games, and they are 3 points back of the Islanders and the Penguins right now as well too. They're right back in it. So this is a great thing, is the next month of this NHL season, Andrew, is going to have some great games because there's so many playoff implications in place, and the race is going to come down to the final week. It could very well come down to the final 2-3 nights of the season.
And one thing to remember as well that's really, really important is home ice is certainly a factor, right, Carm? I mean, these teams, once you're locked into the playoffs, you're battling for home ice position, not just for a spot in the playoffs. You would love to have, if your playoff series goes to 7 games, you would love to be at your arena, at your house, with your fans behind you. So I feel like that's huge too for people to consider when they're looking at things. And so yeah, exactly. But what about you with draws? Are you going to start betting these? Because in the playoffs, I'm going to start doing it. I believe we're going to see lots of overtimes. I don't have it in me in the regular season to wager on these. I know some guys that are very.
All right, Andrew, we've seen Andrew's frozen up a little bit. He needs to drink his coffee and unfreeze. But as far as draws, I'll look at it in the last week of the NHL season, because there are going to be some spots where it's tough. It is always tough to bet a draw because you have no idea how that game is going to unfold. But if a team has a high percentage of draws throughout the season, and especially in the last few weeks, they just try and get a game to OT, pick up a point, and then try and win it there. It's something that I use in European football a lot during the last 2 weeks of the European seasons. There are some teams looking to avoid relegation, and 1 point is enough, and they'll play a defensive formation. Now, obviously, in hockey, you don't play defensive formations, but it happens a lot in European soccer. And then you see draws that are normally at plus 270, plus 280 in soccer at plus 190. And you're wondering, why is this plus 190? Because even the books know that this is a game that could very well benefit both teams, ends in a draw, and they don't want to get hit with a lot of money on that play. Andrew, are you back?
I am back, and this is the reason, Carm, I try and show my commitment to you. I don't like to miss too many shows, but there's a reason why it's nice being at with the home setup with the microphone and things like that. So I guys for for the problems there. But let's go into best bets here. We'll start things off with what you have for us today.
All right, so 3 plays up, players, props and plays on tonight's game. A couple Champions League games for tomorrow, with 2 big quarterfinal spots on the line. I've got them up on $9 Monday. The soccer one will come down at midnight and go back to regular pricing. So pick that one up. Andrew, this is the first time all season long I have taken a shot prop on a Montreal Canadiens player. But I'm going to take Mike Matheson over 2.5 shots, minus 130. He's gone over the total in 7 of his last 9 games. The last 2 have stayed under the total, but they came against teams that allow low shot attempts on goal. The New York Rangers and the New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils. He's averaging 25 plus minutes a game. That's the kind of guy you want to take a shot prop off of. So I'm going to take it tonight. I'm going to take Matheson over 2.5 shots, minus 130, and see if we can make it 8 out of 10 with him going over that number.
I love that pick. I love it. Carm, I'll tell you what, I did not think he would be your first prop player, though, of the season on that team. But he's shooting the puck a lot right now and getting lots of minutes, like you said there, for the Canadiens. Look, for myself, I know it's a hockey show, but we've now hit 4 straight top plays in the UFC. We've got a big card coming up this Saturday, Carm. I know you'll watch some of the events. I do recommend everybody out there tuning into this event coming up on Saturday. I'm going to have my plays up a lot earlier this week, 2 of them going up today. And of course, they're only listed for $9. Looking like one NHL best bet, but you guys already heard a lot of my opinions. But the show play, and Carm kind of backed me up with some great stats here, and Ralph Michaels as well. I'm going under Buffalo and Toronto, under 7. 2 teams that certainly can score, but I'm expecting more of a defensive effort, bounce back situation for both these, getting out of some sloppy games that they were in. Despite being successful on the weekend, Toronto will not be happy with how that game played out. So I have Buffalo, Toronto under 7, and Carm has Mike Matheson from the Montreal Canadiens over 2.5 shots on goal at a great price there of minus 130. We've got the buy and sell segment will take place tomorrow on Tuesday. And Wager Talk today, guys, comes up here at 12 o'clock Eastern time. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at Wager Talk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at Wager Talk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to wagertalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.